Hello friends, welcome to Horrorcraft. I am your host Danielson, and I'm about to present to you the inaugural video of a very special series. As many of you know, YouTube provides me various analytical data concerning the traffic on the channel, as well as various tools to see how my videos are being viewed. With such data and tools, I've known for quite some time that more than 80% of my viewers are listening on their phones, and of that number, more than 65% of you are on Android phones. And so, with a special attention to my mobile users, I present to you this series of scary and true mobile phone stories. I would like to thank each and every one of you on your smartphones, your iPhones and Androids for listening to Horrorcraft. I certainly hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you enjoy the series. And now friends, without further ado, our first true scary story. My Strange Childhood Memory by Afflict. When I was about 6 or 7, I remember living in the subterranean area of San Jose, California, Los Gatos to be exact. There is a middle school in that area that my older sister used to attend. I have a fond memory of going there late one night, probably around the winter season. Now, it's important to note, at that time, smartphones were becoming a cool thing for teenagers to have, but I didn't have my first smartphone until I was about 12 or 13. The point is that around that age, I wanted to have a smartphone badly. I would do anything to get myself one. There was this area in the school that led to the field. If I remember correctly, I attended the school for 1 year in the 6th grade. The area in question was right next to the cafeteria. During the day, the area was pretty normal and generic. However, during the darker hours of the night, this area was spookily silent and dark. On that night, my mom and sister went off with the principal into the classroom to talk about my sister's grades and her performance in school. I eventually wandered off into the school quad out of curiosity. Eventually, I came across the previously mentioned area. Standing next to the entrance to the spooky, dark abyss was a hooded man. He was somewhere around the age of 20 or maybe 18. I remember having a conversation with him about his smartphone. At one point, I clearly remember him saying in a serious toned voice, "Do you want one?" Now, being the naive, innocent child that I was at the time, I of course said yes in an energetic and enthusiastic tone of voice. He then told me, "If you go over there, I will give you one. I'll go with you, and I'll give you mine." He was pointing to the previously mentioned area. What I realize now, looking back on it, was the same area also led to a drive-in for the school as well. It was a direct drive-through of sorts. I assume for maybe the delivery trucks or kids that biked to school. He probably had a vehicle or something that he was maybe planning on having me go in with him. Now, my mom had informed me about stranger danger at a very young age, and I thank her very much for that, because it's what allowed me to avoid possibly getting kidnapped. After he made his cell phone proposal, I got a weird feeling, an uneasy one, and I have to give credit to myself for my excuse to leave. I said something along the lines of, Let me go get my mom." And then I ran off, not looking back, and told my mom about the whole encounter. She then had me stay with her for the rest of the visit. On the way out of school, the hooded man was gone. I recently remembered this experience and asked my mom about it because I have absolutely no recollection of what happened after we left the school. I don't know if my mom called the cops or not. When I brought it up to her, she said she had no idea what I was talking about. At that point, I was beginning to believe it was just a dream or something, but I clearly remember it, and there was nothing dreamlike about it at all. That's the story of my almost being kidnapped over a smartphone offer. I didn't really know where else I could post this. I'm new to Reddit, and I don't use it that much. If anyone else has any information about the area and any ropes that could tie my experience to something else, please do inform me. How is that to begin things off with this inaugural video of scary cell phone stories? Yes, friends, can you believe almost being tricked by the offer of a cell phone? I myself cannot. But let us on to our next true scary story, friends. I think we've all experienced something like this. Who hasn't received strange phone calls whenever, let alone a strange phone call when working? Most of us have, indeed all of us, as is the case with the person in this story too, by 4 starters, titled Strange Phone Call While Working. So where I work, they recently changed shifts, so now the opening manager is completely alone on the floor until 1:30 when the next manager shows up. One morning I was opening, and usually openings during the week are very slow, so I was completely alone in the store when this phone call occurred. I answered the phone call with the usual, "Hi, thank you for calling the store name. How may I help you?" And then the following conversation happened. Caller: "Hi, is this the store name?" Me: "Yes, it is." Caller: "Is this the one in the city name?" Me: "Yes, it is." Caller: "So are you near the well-known large city?" Me: "We are about half an hour away from there, caller." "Oh, and so you're closer to the opposite large city at the end of the state." Me: "That's about 4 hours away, caller." Caller: "Oh, so you're closer to the first city's name?" Me: "Yes, we are." Now, so far the conversation was odd, but also a typical phone call. We often get calls about our store's location and such. I figured he or she was just a typical customer that was odd. One thing I do want to mention, though, is the caller's voice. I couldn't tell if it was a man or woman because they had a deeper, odd-sounding voice and also sounded like they were kind of whispering far away from the phone. The way I was describing it was honestly a stereotypical serial killer voice you would hear over the phone in a horror movie, which is probably one of the creepier parts of the whole call. And now, here is where the call actually started to get creepy. The caller mentioned he had some coupons and asked me if he could use them. I mentioned that the coupons were certainly valid and that he could come in on any weekday and use them. The caller wondered if after he used them, if we ripped them up or we gave them back to the owner. I answered that we took them after and that once used, they were invalid. The caller responded with, "So you ripped them up on me?" And I said that we did. The caller said that I had to rip them up then, and of course I responded in the affirmative again. And on it went. He then began asking me about specific companies, how they were compared to us, and if they tore up coupons like we did. At this point, someone came in the store, and I told them I had to put them on hold, and just hung up. I stayed on the line for so long because at first they seemed just like a really odd customer, but then it started to get creepier. The whole time, they were talking in a super creepy voice, and would become slightly agitated when I told them that I didn't know. I was really shaken up by the call, and I wasn't sure what to do about someone acting like a customer, and then using the creepiest transition into asking about my mail. It left me with so many questions. Who was the caller? Why did they call? Was that a scammer? If that was for a school project, what the hell kind of project was it? I was thoroughly shaken up after the call and contemplated contacting the district manager, but then my other manager came in for her shift early, so I was no longer alone. As I did say, friends, a story to which most of us can relate. Perhaps not on that level, but to be sure, everyone has received strange phone calls. Perhaps even strange ones where the person was asking very bizarre things, like in our last story. And now, friends, onto our third true scary story, the title of which I find quite interesting. Bless Cell Phones by Eris7. Bless cell phones? Are they anointed from on high? I live in a normal suburban family with my two parents, my younger sister, and my cousin, who lived with us since he and I were 6. We've never been close because of his personal problems, fetal alcohol, reactive attachment disorder, all the horrid things that come from having a parent more focused on getting weed than parenting. Anyway, he was a part of our family, even if things were sometimes difficult for us. He was my sibling through and through. Cut to our teenage years, and my sister plus parents were going a few hours away for a dance competition that my little sister was in. My parents let us stay home, as I had a 6 a.m. shift the next day after they came home, and the weather was too nasty to lug all 5 of us through. My parents left at 5:30 the morning of the comp, and I moved to the master bedroom to keep an eye on the puppy. My cousin moved from his room to the couch. But all went well that day. He made cookies for his co-workers. We watched TV and ate a lot of snacks. We got a sandwich and then we went home to eat it. But around 9:30 p.m., my parents texted me that they were heading home, so I decided to shower and head for bed. After all, I had to be up at 5 in the morning. So I showered, brought my phone into the bathroom, and I was texting some Discord friends, and I always cleaned my phone after the shower. My family teases me about this incessantly, but it's my ritual, so whatever. I was washing my hair when I felt something brush against my arm. I whipped around, startled, and it was my cousin, completely naked, in a state of arousal. I immediately screamed for him to get out, but he just put his hands on my shoulders and told me to calm down, and that he didn't know how else to tell me, but that he loved me. I screamed for about 30 seconds before I finally calmed down and coaxed him out of the shower. Thank God he left, and I took a few minutes to process if what I saw was real. Right after that, I dialed my parents, who instructed me to call a neighbor to come out and get me, as they were still 2 hours out of town due to roads. So I called the neighbor that I often babysat for, informed her of the situation, and she fortunately rushed over. We decided to leave the bathroom. It was locked, and I had my PJs on, and it was rather hot in there because I like warm showers. Take my wolfhound and head to the house to make our next move. It was on our way we saw blood. On the stairs, droplets all the way down. We hurried outside and called 911 on our phones. I was on the phone with my mother the entire time, staying on the driveway in the snow because the puppy wouldn't leave the house. The police arrived and they rushed my cousin away. It turns out he had stabbed himself several times, and I was taken to my neighbor's house to await my parents. Fortunately, they arrived, and then they took me home, and we all huddled together, reminiscing about how if I hadn't had my phone, what would have happened with all of that. I think it goes without saying, friends, that we went from odd with the first story, to strange with the second, to absolute bizarrery with the third. If not bizarrery, something that gave you chills and made you shudder. I certainly hope none of my subscribers have had a situation that odd. I dare say that is almost a stranger occurrence than the fictional story I read 5 years ago titled Why I Didn't Shower for 21 Years. In fact, in the instance of that last story we just heard, I'd wager £100 that she didn't shower for 21 years herself after that. Well, friends, I think it's been fun for this inaugural video of cell phone stories. I thank you for listening and encourage you to share the video on social media. It does genuinely help my channel, as when YouTube sees my videos shared on various social media sites, the algorithm automatically begins recommending my video in the higher tiers of suggestion the more my video is shared. So you know what to do. And I thank you for joining me, and I look to entertain you in Volume 2 of Scary Smartphone and Mobile Phone Stories. Thanks again, and remember, always be careful with how you use your phone. You never know if karma is going to come, and after listening to these stories, something unsavory happening on your smartphone. But don't say I didn't tell you so.